Kelly here, and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Pinkfresh, their new release. I'm using the Garden Party die, the Charming Stitched Florals cover plate, elongated ovals, both the die and the press plate, and then the Here For You sentiments, which is what the whole release is named after. So we'll talk about giveaway in just 1 second here. What I'm doing here is if you don't have the BetterPress, it's okay. You can still make the same exact card. But I wanted to try it with the press plates. And so I did the frame, like, 'cause sometimes, just card making just requires some sort of experimenting. So since I had never done it before, I decided to do one where I did the cover plate first and then the better pressing, and then one where I did the better pressing first and then the cover plate. So I just taped everything down. I'm using a gray, I think they call it Pebble, cotton panel from Spellbinders. So I'm using that, and then the yellow is called Tuscan. And that's in I think a 4-pack or something. They might sell it separately. I don't know. That's just how I got it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just run this through my Platinum 6. If you're unfamiliar with the BetterPress, I do have other videos on that. So this one, it's so easy to use. So pretty much I've just done it, and now I'm going to put that particular piece, run that through with the cover plate. And I do prefer to put just a little bit of tape over the edge and the majority of it on the back, just so that way when I'm having to peel the tape off of the back, there's less tape, and less likely there's a chance of any tearing. So here, this is the one we've already done the cover plate with. I'm taping all 4 edges because I'm obviously pressing in the center, so that won't interfere with anything that's on the kind of perimeter of our card, using the same exact color. And then I will just flip that over, that magnet locks it in place, and then I will run it through. So what did we discover after doing our experiment? They both work just fine. You can do it either way. So there wasn't any noticeable difference outside of, I suppose, the one that we did. I'll give you a close up here in just a second. The one that has the cover plate done second, the design is just a bit more pronounced. And then the one that has the BetterPress done second, the design is just a little bit more subtle, but you can see it in both of them. So basically, it's whichever way you want to do it, whatever works for you. I am going to use the elongated ovals dies now to cut out the middle of one of them, and this is actually going to end up being my my twofer, what I use. But I wanted that yellow pressed portion to act as a frame, so I did it again where I cut out the middle, and now I'm going to cut out the outside so that I'll have this oval frame. If you do not have a BetterPress plate, you could just use the oval dies to cut out a frame of that color cardstock, so like a mustard colored cardstock, and it would look very similar. So yeah, from there we're gonna move on to the die cutting. I really, really like this die. This is the Garden Party die, and it has stencils that you can color, color them first and then lay the die down and die cut them out after you've colored them. I'm going to do a little bit of a custom color here. But it cuts everything all at once, all the different flowers, all the different leaves, all one time. And I'm not a finicky sort. I don't like messing around with the little pieces. So that's great for me. I cut 4 of them just so I would have enough pieces to kind of layer up my flowers. You don't have to layer them, but I think they're a little bit more fun if they're layered. So then from there, the inks I have from Pinkfresh are all in ink cubes. Just because, so I could purchase more colors, honestly, just so I could have more colors. So I bought the smaller size. So here is the thing. you can do this two ways. I prefer to die cut them first, and then in order to color the cardstock, I just take my ink pad direct to paper. It's really saturated. Now, it does make it kind of hard to get into the portions that are embossed or debossed, but that's what I have my blender brushes for. So I take my ink pad, I swipe it right over the die cut, and then I use that same color on my blending brush and just work it into those grooves. And it looks like it's been cut out of regular colored cardstock. So because I hate wasting stuff. If you watch my channel, then you know how I am. But when you do the smushing, you do get some of the ink like on your glass mat. I use that, first, if I can, to get it into the grooves, and then if I need more ink, then I'll go back to the ink cube itself and ink up my blending pen. So I tried a different color combination. This is definitely different for me. I do think it came out really pretty, but I was just trying to find something new for fall, something that's not my usual go-to colors, and so came up with this one, and I think it works pretty well. It's definitely more muted than I would normally do, but that's okay. So for the leaves, I did the same thing at first. Don't worry, we're going to change it because I can't leave anything alone. But anywho, so I did all of the leaves. There's like 4 or 5 different types of leaves in the die cut. Anything that looked similar, I just grouped together so that way I would just have to have those couple of colors. What are the ones that I used? This is Green Gables is one of the ones that I used, and from that one I used the Spruce Tips, and then later on I'll use the Lush Forest. The pinks both come from Rose Garden, and that's Cherry Blossom and Peony. The teal comes from the Amalfi Coast, and I used Paradise and Atlantis. And then the blue is a combo. So it's the Starry Night, and then I used, what was that one called? Does anybody know? I don't know. Here, what I'm showing you is if you don't want to have to hold them in your finger, I did find it easier with the little die cuts to just hold the ink in my hand and kind of rub the die cuts on there. This does get your fingers pretty dirty. And here I'm showing you like where I got two spots on my pink ones because I was holding them after I had already done like the blues and the greens. So just be aware of that. Some people don't like to get their fingers dirty, and that's totally fine. Or you could wear gloves so that you could just kind of strip those off and be done with those. Anyway, the other one I used for the blue was Storm. So now I'm just playing around with the flowers. This was actually a lot of fun, just kind of playing around and getting different combinations of them. And, there isn't a right or a wrong way to build the flowers out. And you can even use like the smaller ones on their own, without layering them up. There's a couple that I used in the floral arrangements that are just the small ones. And then the centers, so some of the centers are a little bit smaller, and if you're like me and you don't love the teeny or tiny parts, I end up using the gold pearls for my centers to add that little bit of shine, because I love the glitter and the shine anyway. So if you don't even want to have to mess around with those smaller circles for the centers, you can just swap in a pearl or a gemstone or something like that, and it would be totally fine. Because, as previously stated, I can never leave well enough alone, I am going to go back in and do a little extra, because that's just how I roll, folks. They do look fine, just like this, like with the colors. There's nothing wrong with them. I always feel like when I'm creating, like I'm happier when I have created something that I feel like looks like my own. Like it's not going to look like how everybody else's looks. And so I am typically happier when I do that. One of the things that I found was this particular blue I felt was just a little bit bright. And so I was going to go back in and make it a little bit darker. So I pulled out the sapphire or I'm sorry, I think it's is it sapphire? I think it's the Stargazer. I pulled that out along with Storm. And I found when I swiped it over it, when I was trying to make it darker, I actually ended up with this really cool effect where the cut part of it, like the debossed part of it, didn't pick up the ink. So it was like a lighter blue or a lighter green or a lighter teal, and the darker was around it. And I liked it so much, I went ahead and did it with all of the leaves. It was just like a way to make those details kind of pop without really a lot of extra work. So just went over top of them with the next darkest color in the ink cube set, and thought that was really a great way to kind of bring out that detail. For the flowers, these are the only 4 colors I'm going to use. I'm not going in and trying to completely cover up the ink colors that I have used. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of dimension. Would this have been easier if I had done it before I put them together? Absolutely. And by all means, if you would like to do this, please do it before you build them out. I did not until it was already done. And so I did end up having to kind of like fold the top layer back. It wasn't hard. It was just a little bit more time consuming than it needed to be. That's all. So let's talk about the giveaway. There's a blog hop going on for the new release from Pinkfresh, and in that blog hop, they are doing some giveaways. So I will link that below if you're watching on YouTube. I believe they're going to pull the winners. I think it's on the 18th, but please double check on the blog. Like, I'm not 100% on that. But then that way you can, you get a little gift certificate so that you can go over and do some shopping. Who doesn't love to win a gift certificate? For here, like I told you, I'm not using a ton of colors. I used the R24 for the peony, and then I blended that out with the R22. I used the R22 on top of the pieces that were cherry blossom, the lightest pink, and then I blended that out with the R20. Obviously, the blending is not perfect, but that wasn't the point. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just looking to add a little bit more dimension. So now I kind of have everything, all my pieces done except for my sentiments. So in order to choose my sentiments and the size that the sentiments need to be, I do need to kind of have a rough idea of what my layout is going to be. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just selecting, some flowers. I know it looks kind of strange without the greenery. I think the greenery and we wouldn't say bluery, but like the foliage, I think really kind of brings the whole design to life. But here, in order to pick that sentiment, I do have to do this piece of it just to get my largest ones kind of assembled so that I can know what I'm going to do. Now, I am using colored cardstock because I happen to have it. If you do not have, and you're trying to do the sentiments to match, I would recommend, if you're going to white heat emboss, like that's what I'm doing here, I would recommend doing the color on white cardstock first, making sure that is good and dry, hitting it with your heat tool or letting it dry overnight, and then go in, stamp your sentiment, heat emboss it in the white. You don't want to do it while that ink's still wet or it'll stick to everything. Also, I told you in the beginning that there were 2 ways to do it, and then I never told you what the second way was. I like to add the ink to the die cuts individually. You can take your ink pad direct to paper on a white piece of cardstock and just color a large section with your ink and then die cut from that section. I've done that in the past as well. If you don't want to have to chase all the dies around to color them. So I just use some white detail embossing powder here. Like I do have that pebble, that gray color, but I also have a white background and a white center. So I'm just trying to kind of bring in those colors, and I will use the coordinating dies to go ahead and cut those out. If you are a BetterPress person, they also have these sentiments available in a press plate, and the dies would match those as well. So just going to tape those down and run them through, and then here's everything kind of built out. I do not know how I have ended up in this situation that I have 2 sad little pieces of press and seal left, and I cannot find the roll of press and seal. Now, do I think that we used it all? No, I don't. I think it's probably hiding somewhere in my house. But please know that this hinge method normally does work a lot better than what it's working here. It is because these pieces have just been sitting on my desk. So I'm just trying to work with what I got. So here, they did give me just a little bit of trouble picking up all of the pieces. I understand there is a lot to pick up here, a lot of dies layered on top of each other. But I think a huge part of the issue was that it just wasn't as sticky as it would normally be because I just let it sit out on my desk. So it was collecting dust and, everything else, just like all your other furniture would. I decided that I wanted to have a little gray mat for the one that has the white background. So rather than use a whole other piece, I just chose to use one of the other ones that I did without the cover plate to just use in the background. And then once I mount that to my card base, nobody will even know that middle is missing out of the back because you'll only see the edges. Follow me for more cheap chicken ways because that's what I am. So then here I'm going to go ahead, and this one I just did flat. So I adhered it flat, and I did have to kind of flip around my frame a little bit to make sure that my pattern was lined up where it needed to be. But the reason I did it flat is because there is quite a bit of cardstock kind of stacked on top of each other. I do really like adhering the flowers with just the centers. So like that second layer, I can kind of floof up and give it just a little bit more dimension, but it will still lay down flat to go into an envelope. And then from here, because I did move the background, I have to get everything reset with where the base of the card needs to be. And I think because my press and seal was not that sticky and I was kind of manipulating it a little bit more than I really should have, I did have some of the background leaves fall off. Once I had it in a good place, I went ahead and taped it down. I was able to add those leaves back in where they go. And then I can just start adding my glue. So you want to add your glue to any of the die cuts that are going to be your base layer. So any die cut that you can see the entirety of, you can go ahead and add your glue to. You will just flip it back over and then press those in place. And then you'll pick it up open it like a door where you can lift up those extra pieces. Again, I do have other videos on this. I promise you, it normally works easier than what you're seeing here. It's just simply because I know that it's old and it's been sitting out for a long time. So anywho, that is how I put together the whole thing. Just added the glue, closed the door, back, pushed it down, added the glue, closed the door. So now all of my flowers are adhered. For the sentiment, I did want to pop that part up. So I just added a little bit of foam tape behind it, and then I put that directly in the center to kind of connect those 2 flower clusters, and just the flower clusters create the balance, and then the sentiment is like that connecting piece. I know I'll be able to put in a couple of pearls that will help fill in that middle as well. For this card, I didn't even bother doing the door portion. I picked everything up, including the background. I added foam tape to it because I knew that I wanted to lift this one, and the flowers that are in the center where that white is also would need foam tape. So I found it to be easiest just to pick it all up on one piece of press and seal, put the foam tape where I needed it, and then I'm leaving that press and seal in place And I'm just going to lift up what I need to put glue behind those elements that will sit on top of the frame. So I just went around the edges, glued any of those leaves or flowers down, and then I was able to remove the press and seal. For the sentiment, because some of these elements already have foam tape on them, I have to kind of fit and see where I need to add the foam tape for the sentiment. And it was really just kind of underneath the best. The U and the will create that bridge so that everything sits flush. So I went ahead and put that on. And then, like I said, the gold pearls is what I used. I put it in the centers. Oh, I almost forgot about the glitter. How could I forget? How could I forget about the glitter, guys? How? So I did use, normally I use the clear Zig Wink of Stella. This time I used the gold, and I only put it on the yellow flowers and the frame to add some gold glitters to that. And then I went ahead and added my gold pearls, which was the last step to finishing the card. I know that I was a little bit absentee last week. We just had a lot going on in my family, and well, I'm not, I'll, I guess, kind of touch base more on it. I would just ask that if you guys are the praying type, if you would keep me and my family in your prayers, because we certainly need it at the moment. And then that is it. That is both cards. I hope that this inspires you to kind of create your own custom colors with the inks that you have. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Don't forget to hit up the blog hop for your chance to win. I always appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.